Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Internationally podcast. This episode is a very special episode because it is the last episode of season 1. And I am joined by my dear friend Hilda. Welcome to the show, Hilda.
Thank you, Ruth.
All right. So, before we start, let me talk a little bit about the Internationally podcast. So, the Internationally podcast is going to be a space where current international students or prospective international students could get a glimpse of the life of international students in the US or abroad. And this week, as I mentioned earlier, I'm joined by my very, very dear friend Hilda. So let me talk a little bit about Hilda. So, Hilda is from Uganda, and she completed her undergraduate studies at Smith College in 2018, where she double majored in government and African studies. Hilda currently works at Africa Careers Network in Johannesburg, South Africa. Would you like to add anything?
No, that sounds good.
Okay. So, as the title of this episode is Dealing with Time Management, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word time management?
The first thing that comes to my mind is how terrible I was at it, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it felt a lot like there was so many moving parts and I had to pick and choose where I wanted to spend my time. And sometimes that wasn't very easy. And if you asked me this question, like 3 years ago, when I was still in it, I would have been like, yo, I'm struggling so much. And this is really, really, really. But now that I'm removed three whole years, yes, I did struggle, but I found a rhythm that ended up working in the end. I was able to find ways of prioritizing, even if it wasn't always very intentional,
Right.
Yeah, but if I'm looking back from where I'm standing now, it feels a lot like I was able to figure out where benefits me the most, and then I spent the most time there. It did always come without, I guess, guilt of feeling like, oh, but you're not doing this, you're not doing, because it's always so much.
Right.
But I found ways of prioritizing, and that ended up working. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. For me personally, when I hear the word time management, I think of well, I guess in the context of being an international student, because as you
Yeah.
said you remember how terrible you were at it. I mean, I was also very terrible at it before I started getting better at it. Right. So I remember my first year, just being involved in a lot of clubs and a lot of classes and just not knowing what to do with my time. And so
Yeah.
basically time management, the first thing that comes to my mind is just how to manage your time and how to make a schedule, how to follow through that schedule, how to make sure you have time for yourself and all of those things. But I don't think it's only limited to your experience in college. I think time management overflows into your adult life as well, as
Yes.
when you work and when you're also in school. So my next question is, did your time management skills improve in college? What was your journey like?
Yeah, like I said earlier, you arrive on campus and there is a billion clubs that need you to join them.
Mm-hmm.
But also in terms of classes, there's such a variety and you're being told to explore everything before
Right.
you set yourself to a major. And I went to college and decided, even if deep down I knew I wanted to do economics, for instance, but
Right.
I went to
Yeah.
college ready to explore and see everything and see what exists out there. And so um, that made it really challenging because during the first year, I did a lot of things that some of them I wasn't even interested in, but it seemed like it was the right thing to do. So from
Right.
the
Right.
classes I took, I took the most ridiculous classes. I did classes that I had no business doing, classes that I had zero knowledge of. I did
Yeah.
music and I did astronomy and I did stress
Whoa.
management and the whole thing. So from
Wow.
taking classes that just took so much of my time without them bringing me in with,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
outside of classes, I also took part in some extracurriculars that,
Right.
looking back, I'm like, why did you do that though? And yeah, and there are also so many of those. So because of that, I think I was stretched thin, but not because I was doing things that I actually really enjoyed.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
yeah, and so I spent a lot of my first year just with my hands full, but with like when you are very, very busy, but it's like you can't show anything for how busy you are.
Wow.
That's how
That is so true. That is so true.
yeah, that's how it
Yeah.
felt. But to go back to your question of did it improve over time? By sophomore year, I had decided that I didn't want to do economics. Even if I still was trying, it became very clear that I needed to explore other things, but also to explore more pointedly.
Mm-hmm.
So I had also learned that I liked to do classes in African studies. I also liked to do classes that involved a lot of discussion. Um, so I was understanding where I wanted to be academically. So that
Right.
helped me in terms of choosing classes. And as you know, that ends up saving you a lot of time.
Right.
Um, Other thing was I was beginning to find my people.
Mm.
So yeah, so I was able to let go of extracurricular curricular activities that were, to be honest, kind of useless to me. um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's when I joined SACSA for real. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so as time went on, I began to be like, okay, so when I'm with these people, it feels good. When
Right.
I'm taking this class, I feel challenged, but not in a way that makes me feel small.
Right.
When I'm doing this, I feel like I'm actually contributing to something. Then I began to focus. And
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't always come because you are making all these goals and you're intentional in everything that you do. It's just that you're like, that didn't work, so we'll let that go. Instead, we'll pick this up and see how that goes. Um,
Right. Right.
yeah, so with time, I was able to figure out what worked for me, and I kept going in
Mm-hmm.
that direction. So it ended up saving me a little bit more time. So I could
Right.
spend time with my friends, so I could actually do my class assignments, take
Mm-hmm.
part in extracurricular things, do on-campus jobs that I actually found challenging to my, like, even to my mind, but
Right.
also, just, yeah. So with time, it
Mm-hmm.
got better. It did.
True. Yeah.
I should give my colleague self a little bit more credit, maybe.
Right. I think you should. I mean, we survived it, and I think that's something worth
Yeah,
celebrating on its own. But can we talk a little bit about the fact that there was a class called stress management? You just mentioned that, and I had a flashback of, like, I
oh,
remember
that
someone.
class stressed me out.
That's
Oh,
what
wow,
I
that class
remember.
stressed. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
remember. So I never took the class, but I remember talking to people who took the class, and they were telling me that the class was making them stressed, and it's the opposite of what the class is supposed to be doing.
yeah. Like, that class was wild. I had to keep a stress journal. Who keeps a stress journal? And yeah, I was like, why did I come here? And it was, anyway,
Yeah.
there was a lot of that. There was a lot of doing things for me that I was like, oh, I'm curious about this. So I'll go do it. I think, especially for international students, no one tells us. They're like, yeah, so many things. Just go and explore and see what you like. But exploring should be guided. And I definitely was anything but guided. Um,
Right.
that's why that's why I ended up doing so many random things, especially in terms of academics, that end up impacting my GPA for real. Um,
Right. Right.
but if I know that I was supposed to explore, but with things that I was genuinely curious about, as opposed to just like getting things from the moon and doing them, it would have saved me
Yeah.
much. Sure. Yeah.
More time. Right. Right. And this is really hilarious to me because um I don't know why, but I'm still stuck on that, like, stress management class, because weren't they supposed to tell you weren't they supposed to tell you how to minimize your stress? And part of minimizing your stress is dealing with your time management, right? When you're better at dealing with your time, then you have less stress because you have less work to do, right? Hypothetically.
Mm.
I thought it was just really funny how that class ended up stressing everyone who took it. Yeah, but so for me personally, I think I mentioned this a lot, but my time management skills definitely improved throughout college. Um, I was a complete mess first year. I always said this because I was experimenting with a lot of things I had no business experimenting with. And when I mean experimenting, I use it in the loosest term possible. So I was, as you said, taking classes I had no business taking just because I thought I was supposed to take that class. I was taking a cooking class. Hilda. It was called
Right.
Savoring Italy.
I
I was like,
knew
what
it
am
was not Italian cooking class. Oh my
I
God.
know? And I was like, what am I doing in this class? I have no passion for food. Anyways, this just goes to show you when people tell you to explore and to, take advantage of the opportunity, it doesn't mean you have to stretch to your limit and extend to the point where you can't even, fully enjoy one class. So
Yeah.
that was my first year experience, and then throughout my other years of college, I think because my first year was so bad, um I was always trying to do better the next few semesters, right? So what I'm saying is, if I didn't fail, quote unquote, during my first
Mhm.
year, or if I didn't know how to manage my time, if I was really good at it, like from the get-go, I don't think I would have pushed myself that much harder in the next years that followed. Would you agree with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I feel that we obviously learn from how the things made us feel and how they made us panic, etc. And so, me knowing that, first of all, doing astronomy, it was a very hard class. And sitting in the class, I wasn't excited about the things that we were discussing. It also ended up not being anything that I thought it would be. I'm curious about space, I guess, but not the physics of it. So when I sit in a class, it's all about that. The next semester, I know that when I see a name of a class, I will also go and read the blurb about the
Right,
class
right,
because
right.
the name sounds a lot more exciting than the class ends up being. And I did a lot of those
Mm-hmm.
classes. Looked nice, but when I got into it, it wasn't anything like what the name said.
Yeah.
And so I began to pick up little things like that, where when it's time to register for classes, I don't just go and register. I
Mm-hmm.
I blurb and I see exactly what it's going to try to do. Because of that, I won't spend time, during the shopping period, so to speak, when the semester is
Mm-hmm.
beginning and it just what you're doing. I didn't spend much time anymore trying to figure out the classes because I knew that when they say astronomy, they mean gravity and the physics of it and it is and those not are things where I'm strong at. Um,
Right.
yeah, so with time, I think I learned to select what suited me more,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
those directions, and that saved me more time. So that's one of the ways in which I was doing better. Um, the other way is I learned to be okay with the fact that my social life was important to me. And I
Mm-hmm.
began to be like, I feel good around these people. I will spend more time with them. So I began to, I guess, follow how I felt more and follow the fact that this didn't feel good last year. So I will let it go. And instead,
Mm-hmm.
I'll choose this other thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're completely right, because managing your time is something you learn throughout your life, but I guess it's different for everyone, right? So someone might prioritize spending time with with their friend, and someone else might prioritize studying. And it's always a practice. It's you can't just be great at it when you're born. You have to live through it and see what you want to do and prioritize the things that you like to do, right? um so my next question is, why do you think it's so hard to manage your time in college?
Hmm. Um, Personally, I think the too many choices.
Mm.
They
Mm.
made it very hard for me to focus.
Right.
And I think that's something that we've been discussing this whole time. They made it so hard for me to focus, from the student orgs to on campus work to, and you also want to make some money to live by.
Right.
You also need to take classes, you need to build your resume. So
Right.
I felt like I had so many competing goals,
Mm.
and so many competing avenues to meet those goals.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, especially coming out of high school, where I felt like everything was very directed. You do
Right.
this class, that class, and that class, and you go here and you go there. You get to college, and yes, it's directed, but very, very broadly. And you
Right.
have to choose where you want to go, and you're 18.
Mm.
So that was too much power I was given at 18, at 18, 19.
You were drunk on
That,
power. Didn't know what
yeah,
to do.
that,
Yeah.
that was too much. I ended up
Mm.
just like every center with the weirdest name I heard of on Smith campus. I was there trying to understand what they were doing and getting involved.
Right.
Every class that had the weirdest names, I was in there and trying to take them. I was in all the directions.
Mm-hmm.
Because once again, I didn't know, like there was so much, and I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
where to go. And I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
also thinking about this because um, I'm currently trying to select classes for grad
Mm-hmm.
school, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing how intentional I am with
Right.
what skills am I learning from this class and where they take me. So I will take this class.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's about the professor this time. Maybe it's about the fact that I get to work with student X this time. So
Mm-hmm.
because I have this experience, I know how to direct my
Mm-hmm.
energy, how to use my time better. Even with
Right.
extracurricular, I know that I need to do those, but I'm also very much like end goal. What am I trying to
Right.
learn from this?
Exactly.
End goal, what am I trying to achieve from here? I didn't have that discernment five,
Mm.
6 years,
Go.
and I
Right.
was just getting involved for the sake of getting involved, because unless you get it, honestly, and I'm not mad at that, because unless you get involved, you never know what's going to happen. And that's the
Exactly.
mentality I had. I was just trying to do as much as possible, just in
Mm-hmm.
case something leads somewhere.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, and
Yeah.
honestly, it ended up shaping up. But
Mm-hmm.
I wish I knew earlier to just ask myself those questions of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what do I want to do? And if I do this, will it lead me there? So because I wasn't mature enough, I guess, to ask those questions, I ended up in all directions. And I think a lot of us are like that, whether it's international students or if you're even American. I think
Right.
when there's just too many options,
Right.
it can, yeah, I think that's what I experienced.
Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that is so real, and that is a struggle that, like, hands down, every single international student goes through it. I mean, I can't speak for, domestic students, but I'm
Yeah.
100% sure that everybody has been through that. And as you said, it's like when you have a lot of choices, you have to be intentional on the things that you want to do, not just
Mhm.
things that other people are doing, right? And so that's when you have to do a lot of self-reflection, and like try to ask yourself, like, what do I want to gain out of this class? What do I want to gain out of this
Yes.
club that I'm going to be involved in? What do I want to gain out of this job that I'm going to be working on campus? But even in order to reach that level of finding the things that you want to do, as you said, you have
Mhm.
to experiment, right? You have to try on things, because unless you try them, how would you know, right? So like this, when you were talking, I was nodding the whole time, because that's exactly what happened to me as well. And it's like imagine you have like four classes that you have no idea why you're taking. On top of that, you are involved in like three different
Yeah.
clubs. Like your day, literally your 24 hours is just consumed, and you don't even have time for your friends, or you don't even have, some people actually forget to eat and forget to sleep, and it's like those basic necessities that keep you alive as a human being, they no longer
Plus,
seem as necessities,
you also actually don't have time for introspection of being like, okay,
Right.
today I spent my day. running around, going from class to club, from club to class, from class to class. What was that class? How did that make me feel? What am I gaining out of that? So
Right.
you
Right.
you are entirely packed with so many things that you don't even get time to step away from and think about them so that you know how to make tomorrow better. You're just
Exactly.
going. Yeah.